Now Elijah announces this drought. Bel was considered the storm god. Yahweh is displaying his power over this so-called storm god by announcing a drought, a divine judgment on the nation. Obedience is the key to blessings. One of the blessings for faithfulness to the covenant is rain. Ahab was disobedient to the covenant, so this is God withholding the rain. It's a warning to turn back to God, also a reminder to Israel that their source of blessings is from Yahweh. It's not mechanical, it's not what they do, but rather who God is. He is the source. God was not dependent on the people were dependent on the word of God. So Elijah announces this drought, and then he leaves the promised land. This is symbolic of God's blessing and the word of God, the prophet, leaving the land. God sends Elijah to a widow who will take care of him. Now, this widow lives in the territory ruled by Jezebel's father. This is the heart of Baal worship that he's being called to. God calls him to the enemy's territory. Are you kidding me? But Elijah didn't waver. He went. Elijah sees this widow, a Gentile, meaning a non-Israelite, gathering sticks, and he says to her, "Hey, fetch me a drink." It reminds me of the New Testament story in John chapter 4, when Jesus talks with a Samaritan, a non-Jewish woman, at the well, and Jesus says to her, "Hey, will you give me a drink?" In fact, Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they replied, "Well, some think that you're Elijah or one of the prophets, or maybe John the Baptist." Like, he was actually compared to Elijah. Anyway, this widow responds to Elijah with, "I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug. I'm gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son so that we may eat and die." So she's explaining to Elijah that this is her last meal. She only has a little for her and her son. And she's a starving widow. And Elijah responds with, "Give me what you have. Don't be afraid." Elijah, a prophet, a spokesman of the Lord, he's saying, trust in the Lord. The Lord doesn't ask more than he promises to give. That's why Elijah says in verse 13, don't be afraid. Now, this widow, verse 15, did as Elijah had told her. I'm actually going to read chapter 17, verses 15 through 16. She went away and did as Elijah had told her. So there was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and her family. For the jar of flour was not used up, and the jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah. I heard this sermon from Pastor Greg Laurie. He was preaching on Jesus feeding the 5,000, and I really liked what he said in that sermon, so I'm going to say it here. That which was insufficient from the hands of the insignificant became sufficient and significant when placed in the hands of Jesus. I'll say it one more time. That which was insufficient. So this woman, I don't have anything. From the hands of the insignificant, I'm a starving widow, became sufficient and significant when placed in Yahweh. She went away and did as Elijah told her. So there was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and for her family. This is just a call to trust in the Lord. Just like this woman, you may feel like you have little or nothing to give to God. Maybe you feel unimportant. You feel insufficient and insignificant. Like, I have nothing to offer and I'm really a nobody. Trust in the Lord. Have faith the size of a mustard seed and watch what God will do in your life. I believe that. I know that. This woman listened to the word of God, the word of Elijah, and God provided for this non-Israelite who acted in faith, in obedience to the word. Meanwhile, the promised land, the Israelites, are without food or water because of their unfaithfulness and disobedience to the word of God. This is the gospel message.